morning at Church on the Rock online community, and welcome back to our Sunday celebration service where we're streaming live from the Wasilla campus. Here with me this morning, bringing the word, is lead pastor Jonathan Walker, who is continuing us in week 3, I believe, in our Living Out Loud series, Melodies That Matter, where we are kind of on a journey through the Psalms and different songs there. We have done songs of praise, songs of wisdom, and then that was Garland last week. He did a great job. And today is Songs of Lament, which kind of on the outside would seem like maybe a heavy topic, but it's actually, there's actually an art to it in terms of being a believer and the difference between lamentation versus human emotion. And so I've genuinely been looking forward to this part of the series.
Surprisingly, I have too, because I think when you think about lament, wow, that sounds heavy, but the reality is we all will experience things, right, that bring sadness,
it's
grief.
inevitable.
But sadness and grief are emotions, and you could actually experience them and do nothing about them. Lament is the invitation to take action. And so in the Psalms, in fact, the majority of the Psalms, a third of the 5 genres, a third of the Psalms are actually laments. It's a big deal. And when you think about the human condition, right, the pain that is inevitable in life, the question is, how do I deal with grief? How do I avoid getting stuck in a cycle of grieving endlessly? And lamenting is actually a very theological approach to how we grieve. So I'm excited. I'm excited to unpack it. Hopefully it's helpful for people. And
this is definitely what I would call a note-taking type of a sermon. Like, you're going to want to have a notebook out just because you offer up some really excellent principles and then a really great format for our feelings. So I'm not going to give those away, but I'm just saying, get a notebook out. I was taking notes seriously in the service. But anyways, you did a really great job talking about the difference, because I think some of us think they're synonymous, lamentation and grief. But we did a previous series a few months back where we were camped out in Job for a while, and grief is something completely different. And lamentation is actually an invitation to something greater.
Don't say what it is yet.
I won't say what it is. Spoilers. But anyways, so super looking forward to what you have to say this service. I hope you guys stick around. For right now, though, I think we're about to start the countdown, but we'll let you go, and we'll see you in a minute. All right, thanks for sitting down with us. Alrighty, guys, so with all the things coming up here at Church on the Rock in the fall, want to really encourage you to check out our Church on the Rock Alaska app. Type that into the App Store. It should come right up. And our website, churchak.org. We have our Echo Global Missions Conference coming up in like less than 3 weeks, which is insane to me. If you're not familiar with that, that is one of our biggest events here at Church on the Rock of the whole year. It's a culmination of a year's worth of partnering we do with both local and international missions organizations. This room gets transformed. There's night sessions, seminars, a banquet, and the night sessions and the banquet are going to be streamed live to you. So check out our app for resources on that, info, streaming schedule. Want to encourage you to partner with us in that and to participate no matter where you're watching from, whether you're here in Wasilla in our own backyard or abroad. Just want to say welcome. So glad you could be here with us if you are watching from abroad. And also just want to keep you up to date on all the things. So check out our website and our app. Also fill out our online Connect card. You can find it in both of those channels. Really want to encourage you to do that because it just gives us the opportunity to get to know you. And in a way that we might not be able to with you guys watching virtually. So it just gives us a little bit of background into who you are, where you've been, where you come from, and how you found us, and just get a gift and resources into your hands. So please, please do that. We love connecting with you, and we want to engage in relationship with you as much as possible. And because we consider you as much a part of the family as anyone in the room. So super grateful you're here with us. Like I said before, please get out your Bible, your old-fashioned paper notebook and pen. Want to encourage you to follow along with us today, just because there's a lot of excellent points and wisdom that Pastor Jonathan's going to take us through that you're not going to want to miss, and you're going to want to revisit in terms of the art of lamentation. So please do that. That's a practice that I've been trying to be more disciplined about over this past year, and I've taken away more from church than ever before. So please do that. Please stick around. I hope that you stay here with us. Share this live stream on your social media pages. Let's get the word out to the world this morning. But for right now, let's sit back, relax, and let's posture our hearts to worship the Lord together this morning.
All right. Good morning. Hey, what's up, Church on the Rock, 10 a.m. Well, all right. That's pretty good. Good to see y'all. Good to be back with y'all this morning. I hope you came excited to worship, music, message. Often we got a lot of ways to do that here at Church on the Rock. But we're going to start off, we're going to sing together, we're going to celebrate the Good Shepherd that we brought that song in last week. So would you stand and would you join me as we begin to sing and worship together this morning? Well, I've been turned around, but I've never been lost. Seen the water get trouble, but we walked across. When my knees were shaking, you held my hand, turning my problems to a promised land. Lead on, Good Shepherd, I'll follow all my days. There ain't nothing sweeter than to watch you make a way. You walk me through the valley, but you never steered me wrong. So lead on, Good Shepherd, lead on. Seen some mighty deep canyons that you brought me through. Seen some mighty big mountains that you stuck and moved. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Yeah, that's my song. Walking with my Father into the great unknown. Lead on, Good Shepherd, I'll follow all my days. There ain't nothing sweeter than to watch you make a way. You walk me through the valley, but you never steer me wrong. So lead on, Good Shepherd, lead on. Step by step, day by day, lead me on, Lord, I pray. Road gets dark, walk by faith. Lead on, Good Shepherd. Step by step, day by day, lead me on, Lord, I pray. Road gets dark, walk by faith. Lead on, Good Shepherd. Lead on, Good Shepherd. I'll follow all my days. There ain't nothing sweeter than to watch you make a way. You walk me through the valley, but you never steer me wrong. So lead on, Good Shepherd, lead on. Step by step, day by day, lead me on, Lord, I pray. Road gets dark, walk by faith. Lead on, Good Shepherd. Step by step, day by day, lead me on, Lord, I pray. Road gets dark, walk by faith. Lead on, Good Shepherd. 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 Lead on.
With this morning, man, this service and the last, when I was just listening to those lyrics, lead on, Good Shepherd, I was just reminded of how grateful I am that I'm not alone in this life, that in the hills and in the valleys, that when I'm looking into the eye of the storm, that there is a shepherd leading me through it, and he has never steered me wrong. Amen? All right, guys, well, you can have a seat. Welcome back to Church on the Rock. We are so glad to be here with you. Man, I love Sunday morning, getting to just be here in community and fellowship with all of you. It's always such a good time. If you're a first-time guest here, first of all, want to say welcome specifically to you. My name is Kimberly. This is Monica. We are both on staff here at Church on the Rock. In the seat backs in front of you, there should be a QR code somewhere. Look around, just scan that. It'll give you next steps to
it
get
might be in front of your neighbor.
It might be. You might have to, do the lean and scan. But anyways, follow the next steps there and go out to the Welcome Center in the foyer between services. And we've got an amazing serve team that's there to get you plugged in, to get a free gift and some resources into your hand. And also, welcome to those watching online. Make sure to fill out that online Connect card. That'll give you some next steps specific to you. And we're just so glad you guys are all here with us. Church, can we welcome our guests?
Hey. Right on. Well, today is the last Sunday of the month, and typically we have baptisms. However, the two people we had signed up, we contacted, and we had to reschedule for October. What are we? September, October, yes. So if you are interested in baptism, haven't done it yet, it's your next step of faith, get signed up either in the app, go visit somebody in the Welcome Center. They'll walk you through it on how to get that done. Get your name in somewhere so we know that it's happening and we get you on the list. Let us know which service works best for you. We'll have it available all 3. So plan for that. You can get your family here. I mean, it's a celebration. It's a party. It's just an outward expression of an inward transformation. So it doesn't save you. It doesn't redeem you. It doesn't make you clean. It's just that outward expression. So if you haven't done it, God has called us to do that. You feel that tug. I know it's like, oh my Lord, you want me to get up in front of all these people and get my hair wet and let my makeup drip? Are you insane? Well, guess what? Yeah, we want you to do that. Yep. We'll take before pictures and then, your hands will be up after and it'll all be good. Wear your waterproof makeup.
Tell them out there you don't have to worry about that. So, but if you want to wear your waterproof makeup, go
or none. Yeah, it'll be good.
But anyways, so today is the official launch of groups here at Church on the Rock across all of our campuses. So, someone once said, as the church gets bigger, we have to go smaller. So if you're looking for a way to get connected, I guarantee we have a group for you, whatever stage of life you're in, whatever age you are, because both ministry groups like youth and women's ministry are starting, but also small groups, women's studies, men ministry, home life groups. So if you came in, you probably saw the groups table out there out of these doors. So head out there after this if you're looking for a way to get connected this fall and winter. Winter is a time where here in Alaska, we tend to want to withdraw. We want to isolate. Yes. Life gets crazy, but we don't want you to do that, actually. We want you to fight that urge to isolate, and we don't want anyone falling through the cracks. So Gene Rosebeck is our new groups lead here. He's in the back, giving everybody a wave. He's the perfect person for the job. He's so relational, and his heart is to get you plugged in somewhere. So also, you can check out all of our groups in the app, too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you're interested in hosting one or leading one, because, you need both. Some people are like, I want to lead it, but my house isn't large enough to get 12 other people in it. So contact Gene, and he will get everybody connected, and you can do just a sermon-based group where you just talk about, the Sunday sermon. So it's a great way to stay connected. Definitely do it through the winter. On top of that, we have Harvest Carnival coming up. I know we talked about it before. Got some weird looks from some people about that. Harvest Carnival, what's that all about? Well, we are part of the community. We value the community, and we want to provide a safe place for families and kids to come and enjoy the evening instead of sitting in our homes with our porch lights off, threatening anybody who comes down the driveway, because that's a little frightening, and I don't think that's what Jesus would do. Just my opinion. Anyway, get involved. You can adopt a booth, so you can be like, yes, me and my family and my sister and my brother, we're going to take on a booth. We want to run it. We want to have the kids come in and welcome them. We will have a pumpkin patch where the Bible story, salvation story will be told. So it's just going to be a really great, safe, warm. Oh, it's Alaska. I grew up on the East Coast where, fall was great and nice, and here it's just
not here.
Freezing. So anyway, safe place to bring your kids. Get involved. Be part of this. It's an outreach for our community, and we're excited.
Candy.
Yeah, we have candy coming in already, and we'll need lots and lots more, so you can pick up some candy and get it dropped off in the foyer, drop it off in the office. We'll definitely take it. We love it all, except for candy corn. I don't know what that is, but
everyone
it's not candy.
Who likes candy corn just went...
If you like candy corn, you might have been a crayon eater in kindergarten.
Oh, my gosh.
Jonathan. Just saying. Ugh. Okay, I'm done.
I was like, please don't take offense to that. Please come back next week. If you do like candy corn, we will love you anyway. Monica will love you anyway. I will. But with that being said, thank you. She's going to run now. Thank you for just leaving me here to deal with that. Anyways, I will love you anyway. But as we transition now into the word and a time of teaching, Pastor Jonathan's going to bring a word about songs of lament. Before that, I want to encourage you, even though you're sitting, to just look at the person next to you and say hello, shake a hand, introduce yourself to somebody new. And as soon as you've done that, go ahead and turn your attention to the screen.
Oh my goodness. Just by a show of hands, how many do like candy corn in the room? That's right, all my fellow crayon eaters. Otherwise known as Marines, I think? I'm just kidding. Okay. Man, how you doing today? Good? Well, I'm going to remedy that because we're talking about Psalms of Lament. So buckle up, Buttercup. No, we're going to jump into it. But before we do that, first of all, I did ask the team if I could make the announcement about the Harvest Carnival, because Christians are weird. I don't know if you know that, but we are and you are. And we get wrapped around the axle about weird things. And so we called it a Harvest Carnival. We had no idea until we were looking at the calendar. It's on October 31st. So you know it was a total accident. That'll happen again next year. So anyways, I wanted to say that. Also, I am not lost on the fact that 2 weeks ago, Pastor Jonas stepped in up to bat for, don't get too excited, no, man. Stepped in, was willing to take a swing. And I also was listening online, and I know he took a swing at me as well. But I just want you to know I'm not the kind of person that would retaliate in those kinds of situations. I am fully aware that there are people who make the decision to work hard and you run the risk of injuring your back, and then there are people who don't. And Jonas has been injury-free most of his life. And so I'm not gonna pick on him, just to be clear. There are two kinds of people in the world. There are people who go out hunting and succeed, and then there are the people who just make fun of them. And so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave them alone. No, in all seriousness, Saturday evening, no exaggeration, Saturday afternoon, I went to get the moose loaded up so it could get processed, and went to yank on the hindquarter, the largest hindquarter on any moose in America. Actually, I discovered later, set the world record. And I was out of commission. And so this is Saturday, right? So I text 3 of the guys on the team, Pete, Paul Sliwa, and Jonas. I said, hey, whoever wants to get up to bat, I'm going to be on my back tomorrow. As embarrassing as that is, I'm not going to be able to do it. And so Pete ghosted me, pretended like he never saw the text. Paul started crying and asked Emily to preach for him. And then Jonas was like, I'll do it. And I thought, oh no. No, he knocked it out of the park, and I'm really grateful. I'm grateful that we have people on our team who can step up at a moment's notice and preach the message of the gospel. And so, good stuff. This week, we are digging into technically part 3 in our songs that matter. And we're looking in the scriptures at the Psalms in particular, which are a series of songs. It's a songbook for the nation of Israel. And the idea or the theme of music, melody, singing is actually a really common theme in the scriptures. In fact, more than 350 times, the idea of singing or making melody or music to the Lord is a big deal. And I think for most of us, music is a big deal, even if you don't like singing out loud. In fact, when you look at eternity, we're going to spend a fair amount of time singing. And the good news is we'll all be on pitch because all things will be made new and there will be no pain. And so looking into eternity, singing is a big deal. Now, there are roughly 2.2 billion Christians on the planet. And I want to I mentioned that for a couple of reasons. First of all, I don't know maybe what you've heard, like Christianity is dying in the world or those kinds of things. But the reality is that Christianity is larger than the next 2 largest religions combined. So it's a massive, and right, there are all kinds of groups that are included in that group, but that's also true of all the other religions in the world. But 2.2 billion Christians, and I want to focus on just a particular group within that group, which is a group known as the Pentecostal Charismatic Evangelicals. I don't know how you grew up, but they're the ones that you're like, oh, those are the weird ones. So the Pentecostal, and I want to mention them because I know that group. That's my group of people. Pentecostal, evangelical, charismatics in the world, and they make up a little bit over a third of the number of Christians in the world, which is a pretty large percentage. So 869 million of those. And the reason I bring them up is because I just happen to know that they love to sing worship songs over and over and over. And so if you were just to take that 869 million Christians in the Pentecostal, Charismatic, Evangelical, I can just tell you, you don't have a church service in that group without any less than 3 songs. And each of those 3 songs must be sung for 30 minutes each. Like they love their singing. We love our singing. And so if you just took an average of, 52 Sundays in the year and 3 songs each Sunday by 869 million Christians singing them, you're looking at roughly 135 billion, 564 million songs sung every year by Christians. That's a lot of singing. You know that, right? Like, that's a lot of singing. And over the past several decades, they've been keeping track of how many different songs are sung by churches around the world. In America in particular, though, there's the top 25 every year. And so I was doing a little bit of research and discovered that from 2010 to 2020, which is 10 years, 2010 to 2020, you have roughly 250 opportunities to make the list of the top 25 songs, right? 25 a year, by 10 years, 250 opportunities to make the top 25 most popular worship songs sung in America list. And over a decade, a 10-year period, only 38 songs populated that list. 250 opportunities, but like when it came to shout to the Lord, all the earth, let us sing. Like for some reason, we could not get enough of that song. And we just it kept making the list year after year after year. And then the next one's made it on the list. So 38 different songs out of 250 opportunities, 38 songs we were singing for a decade. If you took those 38 songs, 35 of them were written by 4 churches. I was like, 4? I didn't know if I held up the right number. 4 churches. We're done by 4 churches, 35 of them. And they were sort of describing this as though it were a negative thing. And as I was thinking about it, I was thinking about the Psalms, because it's fair to say that the 150 Psalms that we have in the book of Psalms, the 150 Psalms were written over about an 820-year period of time. But the only reason you get to 820 years is because you include one psalm from Moses, and then you include the psalm that Ezra, they believe, wrote, Psalm 1, all the way over here at the return from captivity in Babylon, and that makes it 820 years. But 148 of the psalms, all but 2, were written in a 63-year period by 4 or 5 people. And they were the songbook for the nation of Israel for 1,000 years and more. Because God, I think, pours out his Spirit at unique times in unique ways and brings music to his people that captures the hearts of his people. And that's what you have in the book of Psalms. And of the 150 Psalms that we have, roughly a third or more of them fit one particular genre, lament. Which is interesting because you've got about 5 different genres of music in the Psalms. Psalms of celebration, Psalms of wisdom, Psalms of instruction. And yet, over a third of them are grieving Psalms. Psalms of lament. I don't know if you remember the song. I was looking back. I originally thought it was written by Billy Joel. I was Discouraged to Discover was written by Elton John. But it was 1984, sad songs, they say so much. So turn it on, turn on those sad songs. When all hope is gone, you just tune in and turn them on. Anybody? Really? Let's go back. How many like candy corn? I discovered apparently I'm either ancient or nobody else ever heard that song. But really the idea in the song is that there are moments in life where you're experiencing grief, pain, loss, and there's a connection with music. You've experienced that before. I know I have. I know in moments where I've experienced betrayal or deep sadness and grief over the pain that's entered the life of a friend, and I'll find myself at a stoplight and a particular song will come and I'll just be like weeping. Because there's something that's being expressed through the music that I haven't figured out exactly how to express in my own words. And that's what the psalmists are doing for the nation of Israel, is they're putting words to this deep sense of grief or sadness or loss, suffering. And it's inevitable for all of us. Sadness is universal and grief is inevitable. It's coming. In fact, my brother-in-law, my wife's brother, is here and his family, and we're just sitting talking last night around the fire. My wife comes from a family of 11 kids. They were homeschoolers. Sorry, there's no real connection between them. Okay. And we were thinking about how little loss that we've actually experienced at this season. God's been really gracious, but the reality is it is coming. It's inevitable. Sadness and grief actually come for all of us. And in that sense, it actually makes sense that so many Psalms are dealing with that sort of topic. Sadness and grief are universal and inevitable, but lamenting is actually different than sadness and grief. Sadness and grief are feelings, but lamenting is intended to be a response. In fact, you and I are actually really good at feeling sad and doing nothing about it. Feeling grief, but actually doing nothing about it. Lamenting is a divine invitation to take action with the things that bring pain and loss and sadness, which brings me to professional party poopers. A lament, by definition, is this: a passionate expression of grief or sorrow. A passionate expression of grief or sorrow. And to be honest, we're not very good at it. In fact, there are certain emotions that we tend to avoid like the plague, in particular in public environments. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but sadness or grief are actually emotions that are seemingly weak or embarrassing. I notice this with women in particular, and I notice it with women in particular because it's pretty rare that men will cry around me, other than Steve. He's always like, what's wrong with you, man? Dry it up. But with women in particular, they'll start to cry, and then they will apologize. Why? Like, there's something about it, like, I'm sorry. But now I get part of it is because they know that men don't know what to do with that. Like, hit the panic button, eject. Like, how do I get out of here? Someone's crying, I don't know what to do about this. But we tend to be embarrassed about, because they tend to be viewed as weak or embarrassing emotions to express. And this is actually true historically. It isn't new to America or the macho culture or that sort of thing. If you were to look all the way back in the cultures in Egypt, Greece, Rome, and even Hebrew culture, it was actually forbidden. It was frowned upon for men to cry in public, which is interesting. It's why they employed professional mourners. You ever seen this before? Like, you've looked at a funeral from the Middle East, even today, or those kinds of things? There are actually people whose job is to mourn at your event. They call them wailers, right? Not like whalers, wailers. And they show up at your funeral or someone's funeral that you paid them to be at, and they're like, oh! Ah! Like, they are just letting it all out. And on the one hand, it was a way to like show prestige. I could afford to hire a bunch of wailers for my service, but it was also a way of having people who could express what you were feeling inside, but were too reserved or too embarrassed to let out. In fact, in the nation of Israel, you find it in Jeremiah, you also find it in the book of Amos. In Amos 5:16, here's what it says. There will be crying in the public squares and mourning in every street. Call for the farmers to weep with you and summon professional mourners to wail. But it was like songs. It was a way, there was someone who could express what I was feeling in here, because it wasn't acceptable for me to express it out there, but it needed to get out. And so they would bring people around them who would mourn for them. It's also interesting to note that even in Hebrew and Roman and Greek culture, it was considered improper for a man to weep openly. And yet, when Jesus comes on the scene in John chapter 11, verse 35, when his friend Lazarus has died, Jesus knows full well what's about to happen, but he sees all of those who are grieving deeply, and Jesus openly weeps in that moment. Shortest verse in the Bible, but profound when you put it in the context of the culture, that Jesus was not afraid to express emotion publicly. In fact, I would actually say our inability to know how to grieve well and ultimately how to step into the process of lamenting has led us to all kinds of other issues in our lives. Not knowing how to deal with pain, loss, and suffering often leads us to issues of addiction. It leads us to broken relationships, leads to divorce. It leads to all kinds of other things because we don't know how to handle pain, loss, and suffering in our lives. Weeping is a way that we express grief, and expressing grief is really important, but it's also insufficient. It is easy to get stuck in cycles of grief and sadness and never get out. To almost become paralyzed by our grief. Lamenting is different. Grief is a part of lamenting, but it is not the purpose of lamenting. Which brings me to purpose and pathways. Lamenting has a very specific purpose in the scriptures. It's actually identified pretty clearly in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 13. Let's take a look at it real quick. He says, "And now, dear brothers and sisters, we want you to know what will happen to the believers who have died, so you will not grieve." It'd be interesting if that verse ended right there, wouldn't it? Like, we want you to know what happens after this life so that you don't grieve. Like, you know that we're all going to be resurrected from the dead, that we're going to spend eternity with God, that it's bliss, there's no pain, there's no sorrow, there's no tears. All of that is coming, so don't grieve. But that's not what it says. We want you to know what will happen to the believers who have died, so you will not grieve like people who have no hope. You recognize it's a risk, that when you grieve without hope, you have no place to go with it. But we're actually invited to grieve. Grieving is important, but it's not the purpose. It's actually intended to bring you someplace. The biblical purpose of lamenting is to bring us from a place of despair to a place of trust. In fact, you see it over and over again in the Psalms of lament. You see it in Lamentations. You see it in the life of Job. You see it over and over again in the scriptures that lamenting is a divine invitation by God to enter into a process that will actually lead you to trust, not despair. So how do we get from here to there? Pastor Mark Vergrop, who is a great Dutch name, by the way, but he's written a book. You can check it out. But here's a quote from him. He says, "Lament is more than just the expression of sorrow or the venting of emotion. Lament talks to God about pain, and it has a unique purpose, trust. It is a divinely given invitation to pour out fears, frustrations, and sorrows for the purpose of helping us renew our confidence in God. Lament turns toward God when sorrow tempts you to run from him. The practice of lament is one of the most theologically informed things a person can do. In the scriptures, there are two types of lamenting. There are what are referred to as personal laments. My own experience, my friends have betrayed me, I've experienced loss, I'm a victim of the hands of my enemies. There's personal lament, and then there's what they call communal lament or corporate lament. There are things we've experienced together, and we are lamenting those things. But there's actually a format that's given in the scriptures for both of them. There's a pathway that you enter into, and when you read in the Psalms, you'll discover that these four things are present over and over again. Often they're present multiple times within a psalm of lament, but they're actually a pathway to take you from a place of what you're experiencing to a place of hope and trust. Here they are, the format for your feelings. It's actually found in Psalm 13, which is a great expression of it. I'm going to look at it real quick here. It's a short psalm, which I'm sure you're glad for since I'm looking it up. Psalm 13, listen to the words. O Lord, how long will you forget me? Forever? How long will you look the other way? How long must I struggle with anguish in my soul, with sorrow in my heart every day? How long will my enemy have the upper hand? Turn and answer me, O Lord my God. I love there's an exclamation mark. Let me read that again. Turn and answer me, O Lord my God. There you go. Restore the sparkle to my eyes, or I will die. Don't let my enemies gloat, saying, we have defeated him. Don't let them rejoice at my downfall. But I trust in your unfailing love. I will rejoice because you have rescued me. I will sing to the Lord because he is good. This is a classic psalm of lament. It has four characteristics in every psalm of lament, and they're these. The first one is address. In other words, draw your heart or your attention toward God. Often when we are grieving, when we are lamenting, when we are hurting, we don't actually know where to take it. And God is actually saying, bring it to me. I want you to know something. He is not afraid of your emotion. In fact, this is going to come as a total shocker. He already knows. It's not a secret. All those things that you think, oh, I could never say that to God, you already did. He's not surprised by any of it. He's not afraid of any of it. You can actually come to him. In fact, he invites you to bring it to him. And when you've got no place to take it, you end up stuck with it yourself. But God's like, bring it to me. I can handle it. Use whatever words you want. I don't care. I already know what's running through your head. It's not like you're keeping it secret because you didn't say it out loud. I'm the sovereign God of all the universe, and I want you to bring it to me. Raw and real. I'm not afraid. I put on my big boy pants every single day. I'll be just fine. Say it. Bring it to me. It's actually a direction. I'm going to address God with this, and I'm going to express. I'm actually going to describe how I really feel. God's saying, he's like, tell me. I want to hear it. So tell him. We all need people in our lives that we can say it wrong to, and it's all right. It's hard to find those people. I've just recognized over the years that no matter who the person is, no matter how much trust they built with me, I will always be afraid to say exactly what I'm thinking to them. I just made a decision a long time ago. Wampa was one of those people, is one of those people in my life. Martinez was one of the pastors here. Wampa was one of those guys that I just knew I could say whatever I was thinking, how I was feeling in that moment. He wasn't sitting there judging me, trying to figure out what. And I know I run the risk. He could burn me with what I'm saying right now. But I need people in my life I can say it wrong, and it's all right too. But what I know for a fact is I can do that with God at any moment. He already knows exactly how I feel, and he actually invites me through lamenting to express it to him. Which brings me to the third piece of lamenting. Because it isn't sufficient just to know who to take it to, that I can take this to God, I can address him, and I can express how I'm really feeling, but actually I can make a request of him. He isn't just saying, tell me how you feel. He's like, tell me what you want, what you really, really want. I'm just kidding. He didn't write that song. He did not write that song. But that's what he's saying, like, make a request of me. And here's one of the problems with what's often referred to as the sovereignty of God movement. This idea that God is going to do whatever he wants, so what's the point in bringing a request to him? Listen, there's a difference between God is going to do whatever he wants and God can do whatever he wants. But he explicitly invites you and I to ask him, not to slip into fatalist mentality. Well, I guess this is my lot in life. I guess this is how it's going to be. Make your request known before God and see what he will do. I get it. It seems like he rarely answers in the way and during the time that I would like for him to answer. But the reality is, he says, bring it to me. Don't just tell me how you feel. Tell me what you want. Make your request known. You see this over and over again in the Psalms of Lament. But if I stop there, that's how I get stuck in endless cycles of grief. Because the next piece of biblical lamenting is actually profess the goodness of God. It's actually bringing you to a place where you and I can actually declare, all of this is true. This is exactly how I feel. This is what I need. This is what I want. Yet. But. It's what you see with Job. Like, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who lost more than Job in such a short period of time and is not given any reason why it's happened. And Job is grieving, he is lamenting, he's expressing to God, he's requesting of God, he's directed all of it towards God. He's just unloading both barrels to God. And then he says, yet, though he slay me, I will trust him. Right in the middle of it, I am acknowledging, I trust you. You've proven yourself before. You've proven yourself over and over again. This is exactly how I feel. This is what I think I need. This is what I want from you, God. And I'm directing all of it to you. And at the same moment, I'm declaring that I recognize I was made for more than this moment. That if I experience pain and loss and suffering for all 75 years of my life on this miserable ball of dirt, yet what's been offered to me is eternity with you. That in the end, this life will be but a blink and a breath. And I trust you, whatever the outcome is. Lamenting is intended to bring you to the place where God is listening. He is not absent. He's keenly aware. He's let you say it out loud. And you and I are intended to come to the place where we can declare, yet I will trust in you. Yet I will sing your praise. Yet I will declare your goodness. Right here in the land of the living, however hard this is in this moment. Which brings me to the doctrine of the discouraged, or the philosophy of the frustrated, or the theology of lament. Because lamenting is actually a very theological expression. Grieving is emotion. Grieving is a feeling. Everybody in the world is telling you about how you should grieve and how to grieve well, but grieving isn't actually the goal. Lamenting is the goal because it has a purpose. And here's what I would say. When we lament, we're actually acknowledging some very important theological things that you may or may not say that you agree with on the surface, but the way we engage with loss and suffering and pain and grief actually defines if we believe those things. Here's what we're declaring when we lament in this fashion. We're acknowledging that we live in a broken world that is screwed up. I don't know if you've been in those environments. I've been in these environments where people tell you, I've got the flu. No, don't say you have the flu. You're healthy and whole and well. Just say you're healthy and whole and well, right? Like, don't declare what's really going on. Don't declare what you're really feeling. Just declare in faith the goodness of God. That is not biblical lamenting, pretending that we aren't experiencing suffering. In fact, it's actually really important to acknowledge, because when you do, you acknowledge that we live in a world that is broken, which is a very theological idea. This world is not what it's supposed to be. I'm not afraid to admit that. It's true. I can actually tell you why it's the way that it is. I can also tell you that it will not always be this way. But when I acknowledge where things really are, I'm simply acknowledging a biblical reality that we live in a broken world. I wish it wasn't like that. You wish it wasn't like that. God desires that it not be like that. It will be made right someday, but it is broken. And I'm not afraid to admit that. It's actually doctrinally, theologically sound. In fact, in Romans chapter 8, verses 22 and 23, here's what it says. For we know that all creation, can you just say all creation? All creation, that's a lot of stuff. All creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. And we believers also groan, even though we have the Holy Spirit within us as a foretaste of future glory, for we long for our bodies to be released from sin and suffering. You should long for that. You should long for justice in the world. You should long for health and wholeness. You should long for right to be done. You should long for all of the good things. It's a reflection of what we were created for. It's actually profound when I acknowledge through lamenting that we live in a broken world. I'm simply coming into alignment with the scriptures. It is not a lack of faith to call things like they are. But it also is not where you stop. In fact, the second thing that we acknowledge when we lament well is that we acknowledge, we declare the reality of a promised restoration of all things. That a day is coming when all will be made right. And we do that through our willingness to trust God in spite of our current circumstance. What we actually acknowledge when we lament is that we live in a broken world, but I'm also telling you that the day is coming that it will be made right, that longing that I have in here for justice, for wholeness, for health, for well-being, that longing that I have in here is actually a longing that is in the heart of God, and he is going to bring it to pass, so I trust him. Regardless of this moment, I recognize that that day is coming. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 16 through 18. This is why we never give up. Though our bodies are dying, our spirits are being renewed every day, for our present troubles are small and won't last very long. Anybody have a problem with that? Like, yes, they do. Like, my back was out for like 3 days, and I thought, this is never going to end. This is the rest of my life. If I ever sneeze again, I'm going to be right back here, right? Like when we tend to look at suffering, we think it's our whole life. We think it's the whole picture, but it actually isn't. And I love that Paul describes it this way: our light and momentary trials, for our present troubles are small, and they won't last very long, yet they produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them and will last forever. So we don't look at the troubles we can see now, but rather we fix our gaze on the things that cannot be seen right now. When I think about this process of lamenting, describing things as they really are, of grieving, of saying it out loud, often our actual belief is revealed in some of the things we say in the most challenging moments. When someone dies as a teenager, we say things like, they died too young. It was too soon. I want you to pause for a moment. I want you to put that in a theological framework for what we say we actually believe as followers of Christ. We actually believe that to be absent from this body is what? To be present with the sovereign God of all the universe, with no suffering, no pain, no loss, sheer joy, total and eternal bliss. And to say of someone who is a follower of Christ but has left this life as a teenager or early in life, to say, I can't believe they're gone so soon, they don't get to stick around and suffer with the rest of us, actually reveals something about what we really believe. I'm actually grieving what I've lost. them in my life. But when my nanny died, like I can remember, I would just become a pastor, and they asked me to come preach her funeral, and she had been a believer all her life, and she had like had hard things. She grew up on a reservation in Oklahoma. As soon as she was able, they were eating blackbirds and turtles. She left the reservation and went back to Tennessee to be a cotton picker in Tennessee. Like, that's how bad it was in Oklahoma, and I don't disagree. But anyways, like, and yet she was full of joy. And I just remember getting the phone call, would you come and preach? I was preparing to preach my first funeral ever, and it was my nanny's funeral. And I remember thinking, we're here, we're grieving what we've lost. She is not grieving. In fact, she's so excited in this moment about what we're going to get to experience. I can acknowledge that I'm grieving a loss. But the reality is, theologically speaking, they lost nothing. We say things like, man, they never got a chance to graduate high school. They don't care. You didn't really care. Like, they never got to, like, all these things that we think they missed, and yet the truth is, we would say that we believe they didn't miss anything. That's the yet moment. Yet, I trust you, God. I know that you're up to good. I know your intentions. I know what you promised us. And here's what you need to know. Jesus, in particular, is not afraid of how you feel. In fact, the scriptures describe that he has uniquely felt what you and I feel. In Hebrews, it states it several times that the reason that Jesus is the one who's a faithful high priest, a faithful shepherd, can go to the Father for us, is because he's been tempted in all things, just like you and I. I'm going to tell you a secret about temptation. Temptation isn't temptation unless it's tempting, which means there was a desire for it in Jesus. It's not astounding that he was never tempted. It's astounding that he never gave in to temptation, right? But Jesus was tempted like you and I, and he experienced suffering and betrayal and loss and pain like you and I experience it. He gets you. He's not remotely offended when you say out loud to him what you're thinking in your heart already. He invites you to bring it, to direct it to him. And then he is there to tell you, I know. It's not the end of your story. It's not over. I tell people all the time, they're like looking at their kids or looking at people that used to be running with the Lord with them, and now they've gone off the deep end. They found themselves in addiction, and there are all kinds of things. I just tell them, listen, you don't know the end of the story yet. I don't know the end of the story. I've been around long enough now. I haven't been around a long time, just 50 years, which isn't old. I just want to be clear about that. But I've been around long enough now that I've baptized people in their 70s who came to Jesus. You don't know the end of the story yet. You know where they're at, so express it to God. Tell God. But Jesus, in a particular moment, knows all of it. He has been beaten. He has been falsely accused. He has been tortured. He is hanging on a cross with his hands and his feet pierced, and all of his friends who swore to stick by him through thick and thin have now totally abandoned him and rejected him. And there he hangs. And in that moment, he actually says something that you've probably heard before, but it actually comes from probably the most popular psalm in Israel's songbook. It comes from Psalm 22. I remember when I first discovered this, I was reading the life of Jesus. I get to Jesus on the cross, and there he hangs on the cross. He says, my God, because that's how Psalms of Lament begin. God, my God, why have you? It's actually Psalm 22. I thought I had discovered it on my own, and then I went back and looked in the little notes in my Bible, and it said, see Psalm 22, and I was like, great. Because I'm not that brilliant. Psalm 22 would be the equivalent of, like, when I was in high school and stuff, like, we would be in the locker room for the football team or the soccer team, and we will. Yeah. Like, that's what it would be. And I'd heard so many sermons that this is the moment. Jesus hanging on the cross, and what Jesus is saying, my God, why have you forsaken me? And this is the moment God turns his back on Jesus. But it's actually a psalm of lament with all four elements in it. Jesus is actually making a declaration in this moment, and he's saying that psalm is about right now. So I want you to listen to the lament of Psalm 22. Psalm 22, verse 1. It's a psalm of David. It's to be sung to the tune of Doe of the Dawn. You all know that song and love it. It's probably in D minor because it's a sad song. Doe of the Dawn. My God, why have you abandoned me? Why are you so far away when I groan for help? Every day I call to you, my God, but you do not answer me. Every night you hear my voice, but I find no relief. He's addressing God. He's directing it towards God. He's telling God what he's feeling. He's expressing himself. Verse 16, my enemies surround me like a pack of dogs. An evil gang closes in on me. They have pierced my hands and feet. I can count all my bones. My enemies stare at me and gloat. They divide my garments among themselves and throw dice for my clothing. God, let me tell you what's going on. It's wrong and it's injustice. And in this moment, Jesus is declaring Psalm 22 is being fulfilled right now. That's what's happening here on the cross in this moment of loss and grief and pain and betrayal. I want you to know what's happening in this moment. This is what's happening to me. Verse 19, oh Lord, here's the request. Oh Lord, do not stay far away. You're my strength. Come quickly to my aid. Save me from the sword. Spare my precious life from these dogs. Snatch me from the lion's jaws, from the horns of these wild oxen. Ever felt like that? Like if you don't show up, I'm in big trouble. Like if you don't show up, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm addressing you. You the only one can do anything about it. Here's what I'm asking of you. And then verse 23. Praise the Lord. All you who fear him, honor him, all you descendants of Jacob. Show him reverence, all you descendants of Israel. For he, listen, has not ignored or belittled the suffering of the needy. He has not turned his back on them. He has tried. He has listened to their cries for help. Verse 31, his righteous acts, they will be told to those not yet born. They will hear about everything he has done. And here we sit, 2,000 years later, declaring that there is a God, that a way has been made to come to him, that there is a high priest who gets you. He understands you. He's been through what you've been through. It may not be the exact same thing, but it was every bit as painful, and he is for you. Not afraid of whatever words or anger or rage or fear or sadness that you would bring to him. You don't have to pretend it isn't there. You can say it's wrong and it's all right, but bring it to him and make your request known to him. And where he wants you to end up is in a place where you can acknowledge, I don't know what the outcome's gonna be. I don't know if my wife and I will ever get pregnant again. I don't know if my friend Ray will be brought to health and wholeness, but I'm gonna pray like mad in faith that God would do it. I'm gonna tell God how I feel about it right here in the hospital room with him. In fact, when Ray passes away, my friend Todd and I are going to stand there and we're going to pray that God would raise him from the dead with all the faith we can muster. But it is not a lack of faith to acknowledge that it didn't happen and that we're grieving over it, and that Ray's okay. I'm grieving. He's rejoicing. And someday I will too. That's the invitation. It's a divine invitation to not let grief and sadness and pain tempt you to run from God, but to hear the clarion call of Christ to run to him. Bring all of it to him. He wants to take you somewhere that will set you free. I'm going to invite you to stand with us. I think the question that we have to wrestle with is this: will we lament in a way that is genuine and heartfelt, but is also hope-filled. You're invited to. You don't have to run from it. Feel it. Say it. Make your requests known. And then pause. And remind yourself that you were made for more than this moment. This life is a blink and a breath, and you were created for eternity, which has already been given to you in Jesus. All who say yes to him. So Jesus, as we step into these next few moments of singing to you, making melody to you, of declaring things about you, things we've experienced, things we hope for, things that we long for, Holy Spirit, would you be present with us? Would you take the mere words of man and cause them to be words that bring transformation in us? And we ask it in your name, Jesus. Our prayer ministry teams are actually going to be available during these next few songs of worship together. We're going to be on both sides of the room, and maybe now is a great time for you to take a few moments. You can invite them to pray with you. You can just come up here and kneel down at the altars. You can kneel down right where you're at, but we want to extend that invitation to you as we move into a time of worship here together. Church, let's worship.
Amen, church. Through giving and through song, let's lift our hearts to the Lord as we worship still together this morning.
I've
seen sickness disappear. I've seen broken bodies healed. So don't you tell me he can't do it. Don't you tell me he can't do it. I've seen heartache turn to joy. I've seen mental health restored. Don't you tell me he can't do it. Don't you tell me he can't do it. I've seen families reunited. I've seen prodigals return. Don't you tell me he can't do it. Don't you tell me he can't do it. I've seen troubled souls delivered. I've seen addicts finally free. Don't you tell me he can't do it. Don't you tell me he can't do it. We'll see cities in revival and salvation flood the streets. Don't you tell me he can't do it. Don't you tell me he can't do it. We'll see glory fill the nations like the world has never seen. Don't you tell me he can't do it, 'cause I know my God can. I believe you're the wonder working God. You're the wonder working God. Oh, the miracles I've seen. You're too good to not believe. You're the wonder working God. And you heal because you love. Oh, the miracles we see. You're too good to not believe. You're the wonder working God. You're the wonder working God. Oh, the miracles I've seen. You're too good. You're the wonder working God. And you heal because you love. Oh, the miracles we see. You're too good to not believe. Too good to not believe. You gave your life for mine, nailed to the cross, you crucified all my sin and shame. It was washed by your mercy. You are the treasure I find, my reason for living. So let my life become an offering to the one who is worthy. All praise to the Lord Most High. All praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, our King of heaven, my King forever. You stormed the gates of my heart. The veil in between was torn apart. Now you hold the keys to the grave, 'cause you bring things to life. You roll stones away. All praise to the Lord Most High. All praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, our King of heaven, my King forever. All praise to the Lord Most High. All praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, our King of heaven, my King forever. hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life down before you. I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life now is for you. I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life down before you. I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life now is for you. I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life down before you. I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life now is for you. All praise to the Lord Most High. All praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, our King of heaven, my King forever. All praise to the Lord Most High. All praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, our King of heaven, my King forever. I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life down before you. I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life now is for you. All praise to the Lord Most High. All praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, our King of heaven, my King forever. I remember those melodies, those words we sang when I first believed. Songs of redemption, stories of hope, heaven awakened inside my soul. In Christ alone, my solid ground, amazing grace, how sweet the sound on that rugged cross. Jesus paid it all because he lives. This is my song. Peace like a river, love so divine. Those words kept singing through the darkest night. Sweet hymns of freedom, anthems of praise, remind my heart to trust his name. In Christ alone, my solid ground, amazing grace, how sweet the sound on that rugged cross. Jesus paid it all because he lives. This is my soul. This is my story. This is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Blessed assurance, glory divine. Oh, hallelujah, Jesus is mine. is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Blessed assurance, glory divine. Oh, hallelujah, Jesus is mine. Oh, I sing in Christ alone, my solid ground. Amazing grace, Lord, how sweet the sound. On that rugged cross, Jesus paid it all because he lives. This is my song, in Christ alone, my solid ground. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. On that rugged cross, Jesus paid it all because he lives. This is my song, because he lives. This is my song. Woo, I could do that a little bit longer.
30 minutes.
30 minutes per song. As we were singing, I was thinking about times in the scriptures. In fact, in David's relationship with Saul, Saul's dealing with demonic issues. And when David would play music before the king, he would have relief. It was momentary for Saul because he didn't take it any further than that. But there's something powerful about melodies that matter. And here's what I want to say to you. Some of you came into this room today and you've been sticking a needle in your arm, snorting stuff, smoking stuff. Like, you came to this room and you thought, man, I just can't declare God's goodness. I can't say I trust God because you don't know what I've been like, Pastor. Welcome to everybody else in the room. Because the reality is that any type of life that is the independent life, that's me pulling myself up by my own bootstraps, my own righteousness, which technically is self-righteousness, it's all the same. And this process of declaring where I am, how I'm feeling, making my requests known to God, and then expressing trust. You could start today at expressing trust, because God already knows it. Like, you think to yourself, if everyone in this room knew what I had done yesterday or knew where I had been this week, like everyone in this room would reject me. No, everyone in this room who understands who we are fundamentally would say, me too. I don't care what your addiction is. Maybe mine's just my own addiction to my own ego. Maybe it's my own addiction to solving my own problems. But the truth is, there's an invitation extended to you. And Amy would love to tell you, you're not worthy to tell Jesus how good he is. You're not worthy to tell God how great he is. You got to clean yourself up some before you do that. And it's actually the exact opposite. Right here, right now. Many of David's Psalms of lament are because of his own failures. God, here's how I feel. Here's what I did. Here's what I'm asking of you. Here's what I believe about you. And there is power in declaring the goodness of God that can lead you to freedom from everything else. And he's inviting you into that. He's inviting me into that. Fresh, new, again, today. Prayer ministry teams are going to be available on both sides here. If you have any prayer needs, they would love to join with you. Also, our small groups, life groups, they're all launching this week. Some of them have already launched. The reality is, if everyone here jumped into a small group or a life group, they're all going to be full. And so what I'm telling you is, if you can't find one that fits you or your demographic or your group, then tell us that you're going to start one. And we'll invite people to join yours or find a host home. But the reality is, we need to be in relationship with one another. We need to be connected with one another. We need to be known by one another. And so we're encouraging you, get involved in community. This week we're kicking all that off in all kinds of environments. The table's out there, the brochure's out there, it's on the app and every place else. I think that was everything I was supposed to announce. I feel like I nailed it that time. Last service I had to ask people what I was supposed to announce. So yeah. Hey, Church on the Rock, we love you. God is with you. He is for you. You're dismissed.